book was by a more gentle person, Jeremy Irons, as you know, a film star. He lives in Ireland. And he hosted this magnificent movie called Trash. And if you haven't seen this movie yet, you must do. He went around the world documenting some of the dreadful stories about incinerators and landfills and so on. And perhaps the most riveting and disturbing information is what we're doing to the oceans, with 9 million tons of plastic every year going into the oceans, and albatrosses feeding their babies plastic bottle caps and not fish. A dramatic and wonderful moment for me was on Saturday, April the 9th, 2016, when I met the Pope and was able to give him a copy of that book. And you know what it was? You wait on a long line of people on a fence. You see him coming up and you say, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? I was determined to give him the book, but what was I going to say? And I did manage two things before he had to move on. One was, thank you, Pope, for what you're doing to get people interested in the circular economy. And also, I said, in Italy, they're doing wonderful things on zero waste in this book. But what I forgot to say is one of my favorite things that I've invented, this phrase came to me many years ago, when the only thing they could accuse me of was that I was an environmental evangelist. And this is what I came up with. God recycles, the devil burns. But I didn't tell them about that. I should have done. So a few words about sustainability. And quite frankly, if you're not interested in sustainability, much of what I've said is probably going to waste your time. But here's the problem. We would need 5 planets if everybody consumed like an American. We'd need 2 planets if everybody consumed like a European. That's bad enough. But meanwhile, we have India and China copying our consumption patterns. And not only copying our consumption patterns, but copying our disposal patterns too. Right now, China is trying to build a 6,000 ton a day trash incinerator. They're trying to build 300 incinerators all over China to add to the dreadful pollution that they already have. So we have to set a better example. And clearly something has got to change. And I believe the best place to start that change is with waste. Because every day, everyone except the extreme poor are making waste. And all the time they're making waste, they're part of a non-sustainable way of living on this planet. But with good political leadership, especially local political leadership, then they can all be part of a movement towards sustainability. In other words, this is our most concrete connection to the problem and to the solution. It's in our hands, these 10 things. Basically, we have to convert a linear economy to a circular economy. Here's the linear economy. It begins with extraction of raw materials. You ship them around the world. You manufacture products, you consume those products, and then you throw it away, waste. And you call development the quicker that you can do that. The more developed you are, the quicker that process is. So in the book, I describe 10 steps to zero waste. It's common sense. Anybody could have worked this out, I believe. 10 steps. And you're doing many of them in Limerick. You really are. You've made a terrific start. It begins with source separation, these 10 things. Secondly, having sorted out, the most important thing you have to sort out is clean organic waste, clean kitchen waste, because we need that back to the soil. We need to feed into organic agriculture. We need Ireland to reject GMOs, reject pesticides, and become world famous for organic agriculture. That is your future, in my view. But to do that, to use the organic waste and domestic waste stream, you have to get it clean. That's why you need door-to-door collection. And then the next step, of course, is composting, and one that you're familiar with, recycling. You're doing all that. Later on, I'm going to be talking about some of the other steps, which are perhaps maybe less familiar to you. Now, a huge obstacle to achieving zero waste and moving towards sustainability and the circular economy is incineration. And let me explain why. Here are the arguments against burning waste. It's very expensive, it's very complicated, it creates very few jobs, it's inflexible, it ties your hands for 25 years, it takes 25 years to pay back the capital investment. It puts toxics into the air and toxics into the ash. The better you are at protecting the air, the more toxic the ash. It doesn't get rid of landfills, you still need the landfills for the ash. It is not sustainable, it perpetuates the linear economy, and there are better alternatives, which I've already started with. As more and more communities are rejecting incineration, there is a new threat: the use of cement kilns to burn waste. This is very threatening, because they're already there. If you try to build an incinerator tomorrow, you'll have a massive opposition to it, and you'll probably win. People get educated. But if the cement kiln is already there, it's not so easy. That's why you are so important, especially the ones who live close to this plant. You're working for all of us. Now, let me explain the difference between zero waste, the knife edge, we hinge on this nexus here. The zero waste message to industry is, if we can't reuse it, if we can't recycle it or compost it, then industry shouldn't be making it. We need better industrial design for the 21st century. Zero waste is a combination of community responsibility, which you've already shown that you're willing to do well, and industrial responsibility. And we have yet to call upon industry. We've assumed that we have to do everything, and we can't, because of some of the stupid crap they produce. Now, the cement kiln, on the other hand, this is their message to industry. If society can't reuse it, recycle it, or compost it, don't worry, we will burn it in our kilns, and we will save our industry lots of money on fuel and get paid doing it. Of course they want this. There are chief executive officers out there who've said on the record that they expect to be making more money burning waste than making cement. This is the profit. That's what they see. Barrels of gold. Now the question I have for you is Limerick becoming a sacrifice area where you start contaminating it, then it gets, the notion is it's already polluted, so you bring in another polluter and another savage attack on your environment. Is Ireland going from green to muddy brown? I mean, I've always thought Ireland is green, and certainly from the plane, it's very green. The person behind me, just before we landed, said, "Woo!" She says, "Ireland is very, very green." And the person next to her said, "Yes, that's because it rains every day." Or even red. And yesterday I had the thrill of meeting Pat and his wife, and they showed me these dreadful red ponds. And today, mud ponds, and today, with the help of Derek, we flew for 55 minutes around this whole region. And what a beautiful country. What a beautiful green country. I'm looking from the air at the most fertile valley in the whole of Europe. The most fertile valley in the whole of Europe, and you see all those farms out there harvesting their crops and they're tending their sheep and cattle, and then you see this savage red ponds here, built right next to the estuary, just a few feet from the estuary. It's like someone slashing a Renaissance painting. It's like blood. It's blood on your hands. Blood on somebody's hands. And they say, well, this is not toxic, but Pat is making it all up. He's just trying to make money. He's making it all up. Well, I tell you, he's not making it up. And you know how I know? Because the first thing the government does when you have a scandal like this, a pollution scandal like this, and the decision to put this crap here, is that they blame the farmer. Anything that happens, they blame the farmer. In Bonnybridge, Scotland, they blamed Andrew Graham for his cattle dying. not the hazardous waste incinerator. He was a bad husbandry, and yet his animals won prizes before the hazardous waste incinerator. Same thing happened in Pontypool, Wales, with another hazardous waste incinerator. And the same thing happened in Utah, where the sheep were poisoned, dying in thousands. Then it turned out it was a release of nerve gas. And the same thing happened again in Michigan, where they poisoned the whole of Michigan. How? Because it was bad. Farmers. The farmers were doing it. Bad farming. No, what happened was they mixed up fire retardants and animal feed. They came in the same bags, looked the same, they were side by side, and they fed polybrominated biphenyls to the cattle. Not the farmers. Little common sense here. How does that red dust there, that red stuff, get to his farm? It doesn't seem possible, does it? You see it down there, and he's up on the hill somewhere. Well, here's a little experiment. A little experiment in common sense. You put on black Wellingtons and cross his field, and when you got to the end of the field, you look at his black Wellingtons, it's got red dust on it. Now, where's that red dust come from? Now, as far as this red mud not being toxic, I urge you to have a look at this. They had an experiment in Western Australia where they deliberately spread red mud on 40 farms. It was an absolute disaster, and you can read that up. There's the website. It's actually on our website, the fluoridealert.org website. And is it toxic? Well, let's look at this. This is a paper written in, I can't see the date here, 2014. But overall, the red mud has a lot of hazardous elements, such as arsenic, lead, chromium, and mercury. There is the potential environmental risk in long-term storage of red mud, right in the heart of your Green Valley, a few hundred meters from a company making powdered milk sent to China. One day the Chinese are going to find out, they're not going to be happy about it. Here's another paper, and blowing up a little bit here. These two kinds of red mud can also be found. The comparison composition shows that the calcium carbonate content in simply red mud is higher. Bayer red mud has more hazardous elements such as arsenic, lead, and mercury, and both have a high concentration of radioactivity. And that dust is blowing into your fields. There should be a criminal investigation into the people that determined that that facility could go there. And another investigation is to the government officials who continue to allow it to be there.
Here.
Has the aluminum plant and red mud storage put Limerick on the slippery slope of becoming a sacrifice area? Well, if the Irish cement plan to burn waste in the cement kiln goes ahead, I suggest it is. This will be the second downwards step. Let me say this. You know, when people talk about jobs, everybody wants jobs, everybody wants economic development. But the moment you cash in your environment, you've cashed in your last card. It's the last card you have to use is a clean environment. When you get rid of that, everything else goes to pot. Now I'm going to go through the arguments against burning waste in cement kilns. Number one, it's not sustainable. Let me explain. Look, here it is. There's that linear economy again. If you burn the waste, all those materials, all those products that you burn, you've got to go all the way back to the beginning and make them all over again. Which means you've got to extract more raw materials, you've got to transport, you've got to move manufacture back to square one. You haven't moved a step towards sustainability. When you burn your discarded materials, we do not mitigate the global impacts of extraction, manufacture, or transport. Incineration in cement kilns is business as usual when our planet cannot afford business as usual. We're talking about all the energy you use, we're talking about the solid waste, the air pollution, the water pollution, at both extraction and manufacture. Look at that word solid waste. Solid waste from manufacture. What have you got in those red mud ponds? This is a classic example of the enormous amount of waste you produce in manufacture from raw materials. Now that's the bad news. Here's the good news. When you recycle materials back to industry, you cut out all the impacts of extraction and the impacts of transporting what you've extracted from source to home. So yes, there is a mitigation of global impacts. Better still, if you reuse the whole object, you cut out the impacts of both extraction and manufacture. So reuse is a lot better than recycling, if you can do it. And then organics. Every time that you can compost and get that material back into the soil, you're saving an enormous amount of money and energy from not using a certain amount of fertilizers. And there's so many other reasons to compost. But you're doing it. This is good. It's a waste of energy. Oh, I mean, this is where it gets a bit ironic. They call these facilities, incinerators, waste-to-energy facilities. But actually, they are a waste of energy. Far more energy is saved the globe by reusing, recycling, and composting. That's where the energy is saved. 4 times more. What you cannot get back when you burn stuff, what you can't get back is the embedded energy. The energy you've used in extraction, the energy you've used in transport, the energy you've used in manufacture cannot come back to you by burning. All you get when you burn is a little bit, 25% of, no, actually more in the cement kiln, maybe 75% of the calorific value in your paper and plastics. But it's a waste of energy. Let's have a look at this chart here. This compares the amount of energy you get if you recycle a ton of this material on the left. The yellow column is how much energy you would get if you use an incinerator to make electricity. And notice that the one I've outlined, PET, polyethylene terephthalate, common plastic bottles. 26 times more energy is saved by recycling that material than burning it and producing electricity. Incineration is a threat to the health of cement kilns, the health of the local residents. That's why most of you are here, I'm sure. Here are 2 technical documents that represent the spectrum of views on the health issues. Here's one that says they're very dangerous and they're a big threat to health. This is by Clevenger and somebody else, Cairns, Barnes. It's quite old, 1990. And here is the view of industry. And to be fair to yourself, you should read both sides, come to a great judgment. Now, what is clear is that incineration and cement kilns put toxic metals into the air. The metals that go in there, into the air, mercury, cadmium, lead, thallium. These are low melting point metals and they are easily vaporized or come out as very tiny particles. So this is a big issue. So looking at the toxic metals. Well, here's a schematic of a cement kiln. And so the first concern is what is going up into the air? How much of these volatile metals go into the air? And to answer that question, you say, well, how sophisticated is the air pollution control equipment? And the air pollution control equipment for making cement is pretty crude. An electrostatic precipitator. These went out of favor as far as a modern trash incinerator many years ago. So they are going to go into the air, period. But it's worse. If you notice the small print underneath the electrostatic precipitator towards the top, it says dust recycling. Dust recycling. Instead of doing the obvious thing, which is once you've captured these toxic substances, and you've got them in this ash, then you sequester the ash. You find a safe place to put the ash. You may even stabilize it beforehand. That's what you do. You've got a sink. You've captured these toxic metals. Well done. Now look after it. But what do? They put it back into the process. They call it ash recycling. It's an insult to the word recycling to call this recycling. They completely subvert the whole mission of a pollution control device. So there's only two places now where those toxic metals can go. Either into the cement or into the air. There's no other place for it, because you haven't taken the sink that you created and put that in a safe place. So let's talk about the ash. While we're talking about the ash, there's two kinds of ash that are produced in an incinerator. Bottom ash, which falls through the grate, and fly ash, which is captured in the air pollution control devices. And to show you how much more seriously the incinerator industry is about this process than the cement kilns are, more money is spent on the air pollution control than the rest of the technology put together. Most of your money spent on a modern trash incinerator goes into air pollution control device. But the cement kiln, they just put it back into the cement. To show you how toxic the fly ash, in Germany and Switzerland, they put the fly ash into nylon bags and put those into salt mines. That's the same thing as they do with low-level radioactive waste in Germany. In Japan, some of the incinerators vitrify the ash, make it into a glass. Now, we have a letter, or at least Claire has a letter. She asked what Irish Cement is going to do with the fly ash. And the answer from Irish Cement is as follows. The cement factory does not produce fly ash. In other words, one way of interpreting that is they don't have any air pollution control device, because if you have an air pollution control device, you better get some fly ash, otherwise the bloody thing is useless. And he goes on, the best way to explain it is to consider the purpose of a cement factory and the purpose of an incinerator. The purpose of an incinerator is to destroy waste, which it does at high temperature, leaving behind the ash. The ash, now here, when he says that, he's talking about bottom ash. But the question is, what do you do with fly ash? I'm a bit worried now, because if one of your people that's making public statements does not know the difference between bottom ash and fly ash, we have a real problem. The ash that remains is, this is the bottom ash now, the ash that remains is the inorganic or mineral fraction of the waste that do not burn, and is typically sent off-site for further processing or treatment. Correct. Now, the purpose of a cement factory is just that. It is a factory making cement. 100% of our raw materials are minerals from the natural rock. These minerals provide the chemistry for our final cement. They already exist inside the natural rock, and the job of our factory is to rearrange these minerals into a new form that ensures a more consistent and predictable performance when the cement is used to make concrete. Okay, nice. These minerals from the rock do not burn, but at extreme temperatures inside our cement kiln, they melt. And the ash or minerals from the combustion of the fuel, now he's talking about the bottom ash, but of course it will also include the fly ash, because they recycle the fly ash as well back into the kiln. Whether from fossil or alternative fuels, which is generated at these extreme temperatures inside the cement kiln, also melts and fuses with our raw materials to become part of our clinker. Approximately 1% of our raw materials arises in this way from the ash in the fuel. In other words, all the toxic elements that are used in all the commercial products that end up in our lives and that end up shredded and pushed into this incinerator are going to end up in the cement, or worse, into the air. None of it is trapped. None of it is sequestered. None of it is looked after late responsible incinerator.